All right, joining us today on Pirate Radio Live, NBA Draft Analyst Ersin Demir. Ersin, how you doing today, man?
Hey, thanks for having me on, man. And salute the Pirate Nation. And let's talk about Felton and the draft, man. Let's do it.
Yes, sir. Before we get into RJ Felton, the big news this week, the Kevin Durant trade. Just real quick, I wanted to get your thoughts on the trade and what do you think the Suns do now that they have that number 10 pick?
Yeah, they have too many shooting guards and they need a five. But do you go for a five that high? Is there really a needle move for them? I think they need a needle mover, if that makes sense, to build and go for long-term potential, swing for the fences. Because yeah, they traded KD. Actually, you're punting your title chances, in my opinion, because yeah, they had three very good shooting guards, but yeah, the rest of the team is not a collective. And if I were them, I would go swing for the fences, man. A guy like Noah Sengue from France would make a lot of sense. Not for the short term, but the guy that they can give a Booker-esque trajectory. Not in terms of expectation, but Booker is there since his rookie year, so and they need a guy like that to invest in to secure a little bit of the future because they overplayed their end and they have very little picks left. So you gotta have some home runs, man. With strike two. It's strike two for them. They have another chance then to really hit on that number 10 pick. Because yeah, they did Houston a big favor by taking on that Jalen Green contact, man. So yeah,
Yeah,
for a guy that would have been off their books next year.
I mean, I think I've read they're looking to probably move off of Jalen Green, but yeah, the Suns are just one of the most interesting teams to me because I don't get it. I don't get how you're 2 wins away from winning a championship, and then you add all these superstars, and still nothing works. So yeah, definitely need to swing for the fences, build around Devin Booker. But we'll go ahead and get into RJ Felton. Yeah, had a pretty good write up on him the other day. Former Pirate, now draft prospect RJ Felton. Just what has stood out to you, just looking at his tape and what he's done in his 4 years at East Carolina?
Well, first thing and foremost, I don't care about stats. I think that's the best thing for me. I try to watch guys and try to draft roles, if that makes sense. Because he can score 30 points a game at East Carolina. It doesn't make sense to expect that same in the NBA. He's not going to get the ball touches that he had at East Carolina in the NBA. So you look for feasible parts of his game, translating to the next level. And if I look at RJ Felton's game, and he was a late addition to Portsmouth, and he looked more ready than the rest of these guys. I think that's the advantage of being in a 4 year system because in the 4 years you're bent and shaped in a certain role, and he expanded his role. He took on, especially it was his team, and he showed out as the number one guy. But in NBA to stick, you have to get off that number one guy type of player, And he started from as a small road to being the team star. So that's the best trajectory for him. And he stayed at one school, and to give more direct answer to what he's going to do in the NBA, his scoring out of closeouts and the consistency of his shot, those two things are the first thing that he must master if he wants to touch the floor. But what I liked about RJ Felton is the maturity on the defensive end, man. He recognized rotations very well. He's tough. He's physical. He continued to add to his frame. And when I looked at him at Portsmouth, he looked like one of the strongest guards out there. I think with physicality, that's what you need to stick in the NBA. He's not going to switch three positions. That's impossible. I think you got to be realistic. But let's say he plays as the two and can switch between the one and the two, and maybe play as a smaller three as well. That's a big win. I see a role just like not a comparison in terms of what they will do, but in terms of what their role will be, like Alvarez for the Pelicans, a guy like the Alvarado, sorry, for the Pelicans, a guy like that came out of nowhere and managed to stick around in the NBA by mastering a certain niche role. I think RJ Felton is going to have the same thing. I think he's going to get undrafted, but he will be one of the major two-way option guys in undrafted free agency because he makes a lot of sense of what NBA teams want. A lot of teams need a guy like that on the bench. For example, the Knicks needed a guy like that in the playoff series. A guy like, for example, the Pistons needed the same thing, and that was one matchup. I think for a guard that doesn't really rely on passing, on exploiting the angles that he creates to pass, but to execute and add to offensive rating with scoring off the bench, that's what you need. And a team like the Clippers, the same thing. What they struggle with in the series, if James Harden sits, okay, what do? A spark off the bench, but a good spark who can thrive on fewer ball touches because that's the other side of the coin. In the NBA, he's not going to get the ball touches that he had in college. So production, that's why I say statistics don't matter that much. It's all about what you do on the floor, rotations, reading the floor, reading the schemes that other teams are running. How do you defend in a pick and roll? Do you actively tag? How do you seal off of your defenders if you gonna navigate through screens? Those type of things. And RJ Felton is kind of the substance guy, man. You don't see a lot of flash with him, but with a lot of substance. That's what I like about this game. And when I wrote about him, that's what he consistently showing, in latest season of the East Carolina, because I took the sample size of the last few games that East Carolina played, and he can score 20 a game. It doesn't matter, man, because his role makes too much sense. I think he's not going to get drafted, but he should sign a two-way contract, man. That's I'm really certain of.
Yeah, that seems to be the feeling around him. You mentioned the Portsmouth tournament, and it was kind of funny because, like you said, he was a late addition, and I think he drove himself there that morning, and then came out of the parking lot and dropped 28 points. So, how much did that help out his status? Like, I mean, you said he'll probably be an undrafted free agent, but how much do you think that helped his stock in the draft?
It helped a lot, man, because he's playing among his peers. He's playing among NBA talent because these fifth-year seniors, four-year seniors, they all want the same thing. The crumbles that are left, the two-way contracts, the exhibit 10s. And for NBA front officers, yeah, NBA scouts are not actively watching East Carolina games. They're actively scouting the AAC because the AAC has potential NBA talent and all around the floor. A guy like Steve Settle, a guy like, for example, what I like is I'm blanking on the name, but he not from UAB, not I think Vasquez. Vasquez is the name. But
Yeah.
for example, other guys in the AAC. The AAC is full of NBA talent potentially, and the NBA scouts are looking to that conference, but not per se to East Carolina. And for him to show himself among his peers, among his NBA peers, if that makes sense, helped a lot, man. And for these NBA scouts, they only looking to gather intel. How's the guy? How does the guy come across? How's his dedication to the game, etc., etc. And for the agent, it matters as well. The agent has a lot of power. Let's say you're drafted in the second round by a team you don't want to play for, or a team that doesn't have the opportunity to really give you a chance to play. As an undrafted free agent, you have a decision to make. Do you sign Exhibit 10 and bet on showing yourself in summer league, in camp workouts, etc.? Or does a team say, okay, agent, we're willing to give your client a two-way, but you have to make sure that this guy doesn't get drafted, for example, like that. It's always a business. And for me, RJ Felton, if he signs a two-way, his game is compatible for the G League. He can continue to produce in the G League and wait for his time, even if he doesn't get a two-way. A guy like that makes too much sense, especially later on in the season, with injuries. And despite being a guard-heavy league and a wing-heavy league, there's always a team that needs a certain guard. And RJ Felton fills the glaring need of teams that have guards, but they are too ball touch dominant. If they don't have the ball in their hands, their effectiveness goes away. But with RJ Felton, his effectiveness is still there because of, for example, what I see from him, what I think he will add to the game on the next level is screening. I think he's strongly built. He continues to add this to his frame. He can be a screening guard, and active cutting. He doesn't really have the ball in his hands to make plays for others. He doesn't have to in his role. It's nice if he has 5 assists a game, but then that's not really his type of game at the next level. It's all about the offensive rating and the scoring perspective, but on fewer ball touches because the team stars should have the ball in their hands. This is the sporting guy. I compare him a little bit to Chris Dunn, if that makes sense.
Okay.
A complimentary guard for the Clippers. Of course, he's not going to say too hard and give me the ball. It's his show, and he's only there to do the dirty work. And at Portsmouth to be so productive, while he came fresh off the parking lot, while he drove himself there, just as you said, among his NBA peers, helps him a lot because these are the guys that he's competing with for these contracts.
Yeah, good stuff. Ersin Demir joining us today. You mentioned in the article, and you've named a couple teams: Clippers, Knicks, Pistons. But you said he's best to adapt and play next to a more ball dominant initiator. Given that, where do you think his best fit is in the NBA?
I think the Clippers make sense. If you look at these teams that have high assist guys, for example, the Cavs, when Mitchell sits or Garland, whatever is going to happen with him, a guy that can fill in spot minutes. He has to fill in spot minutes, but he has to go to a winning team if that makes sense. He goes to the Nets. It's clueless. It's pointless because of the Nets are developing into they're a rebuilding team. A rebuilding team is not, having any favors of adding RJ Felton and vice versa, because what he's going to do there, he's going to do the stuff by default because maybe there's no one else to handle the ball. He's going to do it, but it's not helping him. But he has to go to a team that's competing for that top four playoff position, home court advantage, but that doesn't have the depth. The Knicks is a good example. They lack depth because they pay a lot of guys. The Clippers, the same thing. They found Chris Dunn, but let's say Dunn has an off game. You have to have multiple options. It's all about the margins for error. And the biggest margins for error in adding wins is your bench, because you have a good feeling about what your starting five is going to do. But your bench is, yeah, that's the $1 million question. Can they sustain what your defensive rating is going to be and what your offensive rating should be? And a guy like RJ Felton is an improver of this margin for error, if that makes sense. That complementary piece that makes guys around him better, but not himself. Yeah, that ultimate glue guy. Basically, I'm not going to say it in a disrespectful way, but kind of the garbage man. The garbage
Yeah.
points, drivers, etc., etc. Because the others can get the shine, but he's going to do the dirty work, and that's his role in the NBA. And it's an unfair business, man. Let's see. Let's say he plays for a Power Five school and has this accolades, and adds to his game and have some television games. Of course, there's a whole different conversation. People are going to put him on draft boards, etc. But this guy put himself on the map from the AAC on a less coveted school. And let's be honest, that's what East Carolina is in the AAC. There's maybe they're competing with for the middle tier, not the low tier, but for the middle tier. And for a guy like Ezra Ansari, he went to a Power 5 school from East Carolina. So it's a good hop to go to these Power 5 schools and be competitive in the AAC, which is one of my favorite mid-majors out there, man, with the Mountain West, in terms of the long-term potential talent that's in the conference.
Yeah, and we're glad that RJ stayed, but like you said, moving on to a Power 5 probably would have helped him on the draft boards. But transitioning off of RJ Felton, go ahead and talk a little Charlotte Hornets, unfortunately. What do you think the Hornets' plan is at number 4? And I think it's 33 and 34. What do you think their draft plan is?
And I'm hoping they're going to stay, and I'm hoping that they won't go for fit, man. They should go for best player available.
Yeah.
And Con Knuppel is the guy that's being mocked to the Hornets. But let's say Brandon Miller has a healthy year and LaMelo plays 45, 50 games. That's a win, right?
Yeah.
Because you're not expecting too much of that. And after trading Mark Williams, you have to close that chapter, man. I think that's done. I think I'm hoping for him that he will play selfishly, but I would go. I'm not going against the grain, but I'm going a little bit crazy here. They should go for Kaman Malwach at number 4. He makes too much sense because the Hornets like to play fast, like to draft athleticism, and they like to draft tools. He makes too much sense for the Hornets. If they go for Knuppel, what are you going to get? You get a complementary player who's going to be the third option at best because it's LaMelo's show, and after that it's Brandon Miller's team, and after that maybe Bridges. But yeah, those are the 3 dudes, right? You're not gonna draft Knuppel to say to Miller, okay, you're done. It's gonna be his team now, or vice versa. That doesn't make sense. I think they need a 5 to ultimately connect the pieces together. And let's assume that LaMelo has a healthy season, 55 to 60 games. That's the guy that's going to score 10 plus points off of the gravity of LaMelo Ball.
Yeah.
I like him as a passer. For Brandon Miller, he struggles to get downhill in the NBA. But if you have such an athletic potential dominant big like Malowhouse, he still has to develop, but that makes his life easier as well. I think that's where the Hornets lost most of their potential, in my opinion, because that 5 position is too, yeah, it's not consistent because Mark Williams missed time, etc. And after the Lakers trade, he came back strong, but yeah, at the end of the season, it has less value, man, because they're basically punting the season and playing it out, hoping for number 1. You get 4, but they should go for best player available and go for the position they need. They don't need another Knuppel, for example. They don't need another. Let's say if they get Trey Johnson, that makes sense because then you can say maybe we can afford to move off of LaMelo or
Yeah.
move off of someone else. But if you go for fit for a role player, yeah, that doesn't make sense, man. At 4, that's too much. If you trade back and take Khan at 7, 8, okay, that makes sense. But they should go for Malowach, in my opinion, at 4. Or if they are, confident no one else takes him, trade back, get some more assets. and then take him later on if that makes sense. But I would go for Malowich, man. He makes too much sense with the guys they have. If
Yeah,
you have LaMelo Ball and Brad Miller, you got to invest in them, man. You don't draft for another potential number two option or something like that. You don't do that.
I don't
And the
hate it. I
market
mean,
is way more fun.
I don't hate it. Every year I say like need to get a big. Ever since Al Jefferson was gone, I mean Al Jefferson played what 3-4 years for the Hornets. We've had no consistency at the big man spot, so I don't hate the pick. And just one last question before we let you go, Ersin. Which prospect deserves more hype? Who's being slept on right now on the draft boards?
That's no one saying game, man, no doubt. And the thing is, I always explain it like this, with a joke. I think the people in America are having a PTSD from drafting Doncic at number 3. And right now, every European gets so much hype. It's crazy, man. It's too much. All these, I say it with all confidence, a lot of mid-major and high-major programs are getting robbed by these agents, man. Because you see all these older Europeans sign with college basketball programs.
Yeah,
I see some schools signing guys. I'm not going to name names or programs. That's unfair. But I'm like, this guy is not good, man. This guy is basically a sell-on from an agency's, dominance or influence, and he's talking a guy into a certain school, and they pay him, and they pay the clubs a buyout fee, and they pay this player so much money. And the overhyping of European players is it's come to a degree that it's kind of cooling down because the league is international now, so you don't have a choice. But these guys are playing college basketball now, so the people in America they have these guys in their backyard. But with Noah Senge, it's more of a long-term bet. But this guy has a potential to be an all-star, no doubt, man, because of how athletically gifted, how his body's shaped, how he's aggressive, how he finds ways to win. He always finds a way to win. With France, he was never the big guy on his team in the youth teams. And he's playing for Lazio from Ulm, who are playing to win a championship. And if they, let's say it goes to the last game, it's on draft night, man. So, and he can go to the draft and shake the commissioner's hand because he has to play the championship game in Germany. And
dang.
he's playing in Pro League. He plays in the Eurocup, the second tier international league in Europe. 18 years old, one of the youngest players in the draft. Everyone talked about how Cooper Flag was 70 years old and etc. etc. And rightfully so. But you have to say it for this guy as well. He's playing amongst pros. He's getting contact. He goes to the rim, drawing all these fouls. But if you look at the jump shot, that's where the easy hating opportunity comes. He doesn't really convince as a shooter, and that's if you want to play the 4, that's what you have to have. But in terms of long-term potential, let's say the Hornets grab Noah Senge at 4, that doesn't make sense because you take Tejan Salon last year.
Yeah,
There's overlap, and you have to give Salon an honest chance again. You don't have another choice because you drafted him so high. But Noah Senge is, one of the. He's getting a lot more hype right now, and he's going to the green room, which is a confirmation. But not a shameless plug for myself, but I watched this guy for 2 years. I wrote about him in the summer that he's going to be a top 10 pick, and I think it's going to happen now because of the long-term potential, because of how his body is continuously changing. That clear blueprint that NBA teams look for. They don't want a ready player at 18 years old. That doesn't make sense. An NBA team is going to develop because I believe development starts in the NBA and not in college.
yeah,
Because an NBA team is not going to ask a college program to develop, his player. That doesn't make sense. But Noah Senge is a long-winded answer, but he deserves a lot more love, man. If you're gonna give the age argument for Cooper Flag, then you have to give this guy some love as well. That's what I think. Not one-on-one as prospects, because Cooper Flag is another tier, but Noah Senge is that all-star caliber player, man, that doesn't get that top 6, top 7 hype which he should have. That's one of my takes.
yeah. All right, Ersin, thanks for joining us, man. Before you go, let the people know where they can follow you and get all your work.
Yeah, man. You can follow me on X. It's my name and last name. It's EDEMIR MBA. And it's the same handle for the Substack. If you look for my name, Ersin Demir Substack, you will find it. I wrote about, I think, 230 articles in 3 years now.
Dang.
And I'm only writing about the less coveted guy, just like RJ Felton.
Yeah.
If you're looking for articles, Cooper Flag or, Ace Bailey, I'm not your guy, man, by far, because I'm not interested in that. I'm always interested in giving these less coveted guys a floor, uh, you know, their opportunity, their fair chance of getting discovered. And the newsletter has grown rapidly. From agents, even some NBA front office members are subscribed. and I know that I'm doing their homework basically because of writing about all the guys that no one really talks about. But if you're interested in that pure hoops talk, I write about international players going to the States for college, about junior college players. And the junior college players is the most fun in my opinion because they send you film and I'm going to try to dissect, okay, does this guy do? What does this guy want? How is this guy in terms of a person? Where does he belong? I'm trying to be that type of guy that's gonna give a fair chance to everyone, man. And that's the new what's the newsletter is all about. 2 or 3 articles a week. If you're interested in that, I think the Substack is a good thing. And it's always free as long as you want to. And that's the best thing, man, because it's my way of giving back to the game that we all love, you know.
Yeah, and good stuff on your Substack. I've read a couple of your articles, and obviously including the RJ Felton one. So check out Ersin's Substack, and thanks for joining us, man. We'll catch you later.
Hey, thanks, bro. And shout out Pirates Nation. Let's get to that conference tournament as a 4 seed next season.